Good evening. Shalom. Shalom Facebook Live. Shalom Periscope. We're going to get started here in a second. We just hit the live button, so we're going to give it a second. But we're going to take a second to unpack what we have to do today. It's going to be pretty deep. I'm coming on a little bit later than usual, but it is how Yahweh led me. It is how the Ruach HaKodesh led me, and that's just kind of how things work with me. I don't come with planned sermons or speeches. Not speeches, but I don't come with planned messages. These messages are always laid upon me by the guidance of the Spirit. The Scripture says specifically that all those who are led by the Spirit are the sons of Yahweh. So again, I preach as I am led. It was kind of confirmed today again, as it always is. I don't preach unless I have confirmations. And it was confirmed today. Hello, shalom. I see the likes. I see the people from Canada joining. I see Guyana joining. I see Florida joining. I see Carnival Cruise Lines joining. I see some people on Periscope that's not that familiar with me. I see them joining. So again, welcome Facebook Live and welcome Periscope. Welcome to the live broadcasters or viewers, and also welcome and thank you to the replay viewers that will take time out of their day to hear. Again, it's for your betterment. I don't worry about who hears. I do sometimes. I hope that people would listen, but Yahweh has given me a peace in this season of my life, saying it's only meant for those who are it's meant for. The messages, I'm not to speak to everyone, and you are not to speak to everyone, but I am to speak to a certain group of people. And my influence that Yahweh has given me to be a steward over will be over a group of people that will have influence over a group of people. So these things I don't stress out or worry about. When you preach or give sermons and counsel to generals, then you also affect the troops that will hear. So if not every troop hears me, but the generals hear me, that's what's important. And I don't like to use the word generals, but I call them frontline people. When frontline people have to hear it, and when the flock hears it, it's better for all. This message today will take a minute to unpack. It has the depth that I just kept getting more revelation on as I continue to meditate during my prayer time. As I continued to pray, as I continued to meditate, it continued building and it continued getting deeper. And it's a beautiful thing, but it's a thing about scars. It's a thing about hurting. It's a thing about past injuries. And again, we'll talk, as Shaul said, the Apostle Shaul, I'm going to speak to you in worldly things. I'm going to speak to you in human things, that you might get a small understanding of the things that are happening in the Spirit. Things that happen in the Spirit tend to manifest in the flesh, and Yahweh tends things from our human life. He tends to show us and instruct us things from our human life that He teaches us. He grows us like a child that learns, that falls and picks itself up and walks again. We are also children that come into the flock that have to continue to walk. You're going to have stubs and tears and cuts, and you will continue to be picked up. You'll be continued to endure. You will be continued to give grace and strength that you might endure to the end, that you might sit on the throne. So for those of you that know me, my name is Stephen Branham. For those of you that don't know me, there was the introduction. It is pretty much, I'm convinced that I am a messenger of Yahweh, whether people like to hear that or not. It just is what it is. It tends to, I tend to rub people the wrong way a lot. That seems to be very evident of the messengers of Yahweh. People tend to leave me a lot. That tends to be again, a true sign of a messenger of Yahweh. It's funny, everybody says, everybody leaves you. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say. And it's funny because I can promise you I'm in good company. They left Yeshua, they left Shaul, and they left Yochanan. Yochanan was kicked out of his own churches. Everyone left Shaul, and everyone left the Messiah. So I continue to rejoice in the fact that people leave, that people don't want to hear what I have to say. And like I said, again, it helps me. It's a sight that Yahweh has given me in Revelation, that I can understand the importance of not hanging on to the numbers, not hanging on to people that you hope would hear it. I hope for all. I hope many people will hear the word. I hope that many people will grow. But at the same time, I know that there are many flock members that I'm specifically assigned to that are going to hear what needs to be heard, and those that are not assigned to hear what I have to say might hear it at a different time. So I'm at peace there. I'm at shalom there. My job is to do and to preach what He's told me to do and to preach, and it will fall on whom it falls. I will continue to contend, but know this, that the message in the title today is, as your scars, the presence of scars is not an absence of healing. Many people find scars ugly. Many people don't like, things are different after a scar. And again, I'm going to give you some very good illustration here in a second. And there's two depths in this story about what scars do. But it's also a beautiful sign about something that the Messiah showed me about His scars as well too. So again, this thing is going to take a little bit to unpack today, but I pray that Yahweh will give you the ears and the eyes of understanding in your heart, that revelation will cause you to grow. Shaul specifically said there will be some planters, there will be some waterers, but Yahweh provides the growth. I might be planting something new in you today, or I might be adding some water. I might be a teacher to you today in the Spirit, or I might be a father to some. I do not know. But I do know that my job is to deliver what has been laid upon my heart with major conviction to deliver. Now, I'm going to talk to you today from Romans 8. I'm going to talk to you today from Isaiah 53, which, again, many people that's familiar with my preaching or Nigel's preaching will tell you that we have shown you that the incorrect preaching from Isaiah 53 about the healing that many people say, by His stripes we're healed. This is a fallacy in the church. It has been preached incorrectly and in error. It has nothing to do with your physical body healing. But again, that's not the text. That's not the passage that we're going to focus on today. It is something that I need to explain to you and to show you about healing. Now, again, I told you this is about scars. Some people have been hurt so deeply in the spirit and in life that they have some very, very, very ugly scars. And like I said, Yahweh has shown me this through my body alone. Some people have been burned very badly. Some people have had major operations. Some people have had major injuries, major traumas that have left scars and ugly reminders of the trauma that they went through in their life. And like I said, many people think, well, I'm ugly right now, or I don't like this thing, or my body feels different. But you need to understand that a scar is healing. A scar is a beautiful thing. A scar is normally a strong thing. A scar is normally where your body has mended itself and it has come together. It is not the absence of healing. It is evidence of healing. Let me say that to you again. A scar is not the absence of healing. It is the evidence of healing. Now, some will say that, well, if Yeshua heals us, it's and I'm going to get to that in a second, it's a perfect healing. But I'm going to show you something again as well there too, because He was perfectly healed in His heavenly body, and He still carries some scars. So let me, like I said, let me unpack this thing here for you a little bit. I'm going to show you something, because know this. Because I was recognizing this, Yahweh is blessing some of you with some love or with some gifts in your life that you didn't realize. Because of your scars, you couldn't feel them. And again, I'm going to unpack these things here in a second and show you what I mean. Because scar tissue affects sensation. Scar tissue affects your feeling. Scar tissue will cause you to focus on the present and in the now, and it won't let you focus on what has been done. All right, now, what do I mean by that? So, let's say someone has given you a beautiful silk garment made of the finest silk that the world has ever seen. Maybe someone has given you the finest cashmere garment, some of the finest cashmere. And I know something about cashmere garments because I used to have some suits, some personally tailored suits that were made for me. And I remember the tailor being very specific about certain cashmeres costing up to $12,000 and $15,000 US for a suit. A suit, a two-piece suit that a man would wear, because of the type of cashmere and the fineness of the quality, that suit would cost as much as some people's automobiles. that a jacket and a pair of pants could cost upward of 15,000 US dollars, just because of course the craftsmanship and of the material that was being used. Now, is that suit still a quality material? Is a gown made of the finest silk? Is it the same quality of material that is covering a body who someone has been disfigured and torn apart in scars? Is it the same material as someone who would cover a body that is perfect? Now I'm going to tell you this. Just because you have scars does not affect the quality of the covering that has been given you or that has been purchased for you, because of course our forgiveness was purchased for us. The covering is still a fine piece of workmanship, a perfect piece of workmanship, but it could be covering an ugly and disformed part of your body. I'm going to tell you, scar tissue has a feeling. You can't feel the tactileness, you can't feel the beauty, you can't feel the quality of the material on a body that has been badly scarred. A scar carries a weird nerve sensation. A scar carries a thickness of the skin that does not feel right. If anybody's had a major surgery, they can scratch a scar and it's dead to the feel. It has an awkward feel to it. It doesn't feel right. But if you are clothed in something of high quality, are you still clothed even though you have an ugly scar underneath it? Even though you can't feel the quality of what is covering you, because your feelings can mess with you. Some of you have been so scarred spiritually, so injured emotionally, that some of you carry a scar forward and you can't feel the blessing of love that has been draped over you right now. You might have been so scarred from a divorce or from a relationship status that you can't love and appreciate the relationship that is on top of you now, or the relationships that are with you now. Some of you carry such injuries from the past that you can't appreciate the quality of the covering that is on you now because of a scar. Just because it feels different doesn't mean you are not covered in quality. Just because it feels different doesn't mean that you haven't been surrounded and wrapped up and dressed appropriately. It doesn't mean, just because you can't feel it doesn't mean it's not there. So this is part of the revelation that Yahweh brings to you, because some of you will have emotional scars, but He will give you the revelation and the sight to see past the scarring, to see past the feeling, that you can still appreciate the goodness of what He's doing for you now. That you can this will come with specific wisdom and a change of focus. A type of healing that you'll never get through feeling, but you will get through knowledge. I've said many times before that we don't live by feelings, and I know people feelings are real. Pain is real, but a healed injury will still feel different. A healed injury can still feel different, because the skin's going to feel different. If you've broken a bone, an injured bone will, even though healed and even though stronger, it can always feel different for the rest of its life. Ask anyone who's had a major break before. Their bones will feel different. Anyone who's had major injuries before, even though healed and even at 100%, can feel different. Now, listen to me now. Like I said, some of you have emotional or relationship or love scars or things that have happened to you in your past that have carried along with you so far that you can't feel the quality of the blessing around you. However, you are blessed. However, you have been made whole. However, you are in the process of being healed. However, even though you might not feel like you are healed, you must understand that you are healed. And the presence of a scar is evidence of the healing. The presence of the scar is the evidence of the healing. You might not ever feel the same again afterwards, but you're still healed. And you can still move forward, because He will grow with you inside of revelation and knowledge. He will grow with you to change your focus. And many of you always heard me quote the verse, because the joy set before Him, He was able to endure the shame. Now, we're going to get to some things here in a second. like I said, from Romans and Isaiah. But I really wanted to show you all that it was important, your posture on this healing thing. For instance, Yeshua, who was given his perfect heavenly body to the point that his apostles didn't even recognize him. Yeshua's body was changed after the resurrection to such a point that his apostles, the ones that walked with him, his disciples, the closest ones to him, did not recognize him. It wasn't until some of them that he said some certain things that warmed their heart, but he had a certain doubting disciple that had to see and touch the scars that were in his body. Now, hear me, because he is now working in his heavenly body. He is now working in his perfected body, but yet he carries the scars of his ransom. Yeshua carried the scars of his ransom after his perfect body was given him. Many people said, like I said, that if Yeshua heals you, you'll have no scars. Well, we can't see that. We can't guarantee that every time in Scripture. Because if Yeshua can carry a scar, who are we not to? If Yeshua can carry a reminder, who are we not to? Now, was Yeshua healed and raised from the dead and given all power and glory on earth and in heavens? Was he given these things? Now, you need to understand, was he given all authority in heaven and earth? I told you it's going to be very deep on this one. This one's going to be it's going to take a second to unpack some of these things. This will only be for certain people that can chew the food. This won't be as much milk. Was Yeshua healed perfectly and given all authority, and does he still carry his reminder of his scar? The scar is the evidence of healing. You might feel different after that scar because your skin will feel different if you have scars on the outside. You might have different scars on the inside of your spirit. You are still healed from them. Now, because you have to see down the road. You have to see what it's doing for you. You have to take him at his word. Like I said, many people quote Isaiah 53 wrong when they say that by his stripes we're healed, and they assume that they can apply that to their physical healing when it has nothing to do with their physical healing. For those that are new, for the ones that are always following me, they know I've gone into this thing many times and explained it. But for those that are new that have never heard this, by his stripes are healed has nothing to do with your physical healing, but has everything to do with healing your soul and spirit from the sin that you have committed. I will read it to you to prove it to you, because many do not understand these scriptures. I'm going to read them to you point blank, and you have to understand what it leads to in the context to understand why I say what I say. Isaiah 53, and starts in verse 5. But he was pierced for our transgressions. Now, why was he pierced? He was pierced for our transgressions, sins, our blatant sins. He was crushed for our iniquity. Why was he crushed? Now, again, you need to understand the paragraph in this thing, and don't take a verse out of context and just apply this one little verse to what you want to apply it to. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement, or the punishment. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace. So because of this punishment and this wrath of God, of Yahweh upon him, because of his pain, that punishment brought us peace, brought us shalom. Okay. And with his wounds we are healed. So again, 2 verses. He was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. These are directly referring to sin. Because of that, he was punished to bring us peace. And with his wounds, we are healed. Isaiah 53, 5. Again, in verse 6, and all we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned every one to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. You need to understand that Isaiah 53 is dealing with sin. It is not dealing with infirmity. It is not dealing with malady. It is not dealing with disease and failures of your body. It is dealing with the sin of your body and the healing of your soul. The sin of your soul and the healing of your soul. Your soul has been healed of sin. Your need to commit sin has been healed. That's what has been done. So again, for all those pastors that preach by his stripes we're healed, and everybody who says that in your wrongful prayer about everybody that has cancer and AIDS and the flu and tuberculosis in the hospital, when you lay your hands on them and say, by his stripes we're healed, you are praying in error. You are not praying correctly. And you do not get because you pray incorrectly. You pray. You're not praying in truth. You're not praying in righteousness, but you're praying in error because you were led astray. But again, the Lord Yahweh will raise up servants to bring correction unto you. But again, this is not what we're focusing on right now. But again, I need to show you that it's not about your healing in the physical. That is the key to all this stuff. It's your healing in the soul and spirit. And the main key, and again, we're going to go to Romans 8 now to show you what I mean by why it's so important about this healing. Because like I said, some of you have scars. Some of you have deep-seated injuries and wounds. And you don't feel right. You don't feel healed. You don't feel worthy. You don't feel good about your new relationships. You don't feel good about what's been given you. You don't feel good about the walk in your life. You don't feel good about who and what you are. But I'm here to tell you that you are healed, that you have been covered, that he is giving you blessing, and that he is giving you more blessing because he's going to give you the revelation to understand that not all blessings are what you interpret as blessings, but some things that you don't interpret a blessing is a blessing. And some things that you don't interpret as goodness is good. Well, what do you mean? Folks, I'm here to tell you that Shaul in prison was not good to his men. It was not good for him, but it was good for us. It was good for him. He was given the revelation and the peace and the shalom about being in prison for you because we know that he writes about it. I'm here because of you. I'm in prison so you can be free. I'm hungry that you might be well fed. I'm naked that you be well dressed. He was given the revelation to understand that the goodness of Yahweh does not always in your understanding of goodness. Because he sees farther than us. His ways are higher than our ways. So just because you don't feel good, just because you don't feel nice, just because you don't feel the thankfulness. I was in prayer tonight, and I'm in a deep set of prayer because I wasn't feeling right. And I'm saying to Yahweh, Father, I don't want to pray to you in thanksgiving if I'm not truly thankful. But again, I have to be given the revelation to understand that I'm truly thankful because his plan and his will and his purpose is good no matter if I can see it or not. And that he has good things intended for me whether I can see it or not. And he has good things intended for you through me whether I can see it or not. And again, I have proof to back up what I'm going to say. You have to believe what he says. Whether you like your situation or not, it doesn't mean that it is not good. Whether you feel good about your situation or not does not mean it is not good. Whether you hate your life right now and want it to go away, you need to change your thinking and be thankful, because it says be thankful in all things. How can you be shalom, shalom. How can you be thankful in all things if you don't have revelation? That's what I try to tell you. This walk we do is impossible. You can't be thankful and grateful in all things unless he's given you the revelation to be thankful. Because this thing sounds absurd. These words sound crazy. You have to be a fool to follow after the Messiah. That's why the world will call you a fool and crazy and peculiar. And how can you be thankful? How can you not be miserable? How can you continue to function feeling the way that you feel? Because it's not about our feeling, and the reason it's not about our feeling is because he graces us with a revelation to understand that his good and our good are two different definitions. Sometimes they agree. Sometimes we don't understand it. He specifically, and I'm going to get to the text here in a second still, he specifically told Kepha. Now, folks, this is a warning to Yeshua tells Kepha. And now, why would he tell him that? He says many times in this, because I tell you these things so when they come upon you, you will remember them. He gives them many warnings throughout the scriptures that he tells them things that when that grief comes upon them, they would remember and be strong. He tells Kepha, when you were young, you dressed as you wanted to dress and went where you wanted to. But when you are old, you will be dressed like others and be dragged off to places you don't want to go. There will be times that you do not want to do certain things in the purpose of Messiah and the purpose of Yahweh. But it is still good. Do you think Kepha wanted to feel? He says you will be taken places, you will be led places you don't want to go. Does that sound like 100% compliance and fun? No, but he trusted. He was telling him, there's going to come a time in your future you're not going to want to do whether you be led away, whether I lead you or other people lead you. There's going to be times in your future you're not going to want to go. There's going to be times in your future that's going to be very hard for you, but you are going to be led that way when you're older. And how much harder is it for an older person who's set in their ways? How much harder is it for a person who's seen as a mature and a grown man to be taken to a place he don't want to go? It's one thing for a child to be taken in a place they don't want to go. It's different for a grown man to be taken a place and to be dressed by others, to be clothed by others, to be clothed in things he doesn't want to be clothed in, wrapped up in the environment, and to be taken places he doesn't want to go. He says, you will be taken where you do not want to go. Let me read that verse to you before I go into Romans. This is in the last part of Yochanan, the Gospel of Yochanan. And I went right to it. It's funny that I just opened my book and went right to it. Yochanan, chapter 21. The Gospel according to Yochanan, chapter 21. Yeshua said to him, feed my sheep. Verse 19, 21 and verse 18. Truly, truly. Again, people have heard me say, anytime you hear Yeshua say, truly, truly, hold on to your seats. Anytime he says, truly, truly, you better hold on and be careful. That's in the old King James, you might hear him say, verily, verily, I say unto thee. Anytime you see truly, truly, verily, verily, or hey, you, listen up. Hey, you. Hold up, pay attention. Truly, truly, I say to you, when you were young, you used to dress yourself and walk wherever you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will dress you and carry you where you do not want to go. Parentheses, it says, this is said to show by what kind of death he was to glorify the Father. And after saying this, he said to him, follow me. So there will be times in your life that you will not understand the goodness of Yahweh, but is it still good? So for those that aren't feeling like they're being loved right now, or had the inability to love, like because of an injury, because of a scar, because of a wound, because of something that you think you were slighted, or maybe you passed over on, maybe something that you feel, that you feel was not right for you. And then some of you have been truly injured. Some of you might have been raped. Some of you might have been abused by your spouse, male or female. And I mean some husbands have been abused and some wives have been abused. Some people might have had a brother or sister that has been murdered. Some people might have had a parent who was murdered. Some people might have come down with a sickness where a child was taken from them. Some people maybe had a child that was murdered. Some of you have been betrayed. Some of you maybe have had something stolen from you, maybe your inheritance, maybe something that was definitely yours was stolen from you. Maybe someone has led you astray in the so-called church. and you're coming into the correct path now. Some of you have been hurt and wounded. And because of that, you have scar tissue and the inability. It seems like the inability to be thankful for the people that have been placed around you, the love that's been placed around you, the blessings that have been placed around you, the goodness that has been placed around you, and you're having trouble appreciating what has been given you because of a wound you carry. That wound does not define you. It is proved that you've endured it, you've been victorious over it, and you're healed from it. You're on this side of it, are you not? You are on this side of the wound, are you not? If you are on this side of the wound, you are not a victim, but I've always said you are a survivor. People don't like to hear the word survive. You're not a survivor, you're a thriver. Well, whatever. That shows nowhere in Scripture. It says endure. Survive another day. Some might thrive, but if you can understand that the thing that will be brought for you is a thriving, because again, revelation that will be given to you, the grace to understand what's happening can be a position of thriving. Now let's get to the text. Romans 8, and many of you heard this verse a million times, but again, I have to show it to you to prove to you that what I'm saying. Romans 8, and it starts in verse 28. And it's funny that within the first three words, this is where you must grasp this. And we know. And we know. I'm going to say it to you again. And we know. Romans 8 and verse 28. And we know. Does it say and we think? Does it say and we theorize? This doesn't sound like a theory. He says and we know. And we know that for those who love Yahweh, all things. Now again, does it say some things? Does it say a portion of things? Does it say just a few things? It says, and we know for those who love Yahweh, all things work together for good. All things work together for good for those who are called according to His purpose. Now I'm going to continue reading because you've got to understand the depth of this thing. For those whom He foreknew, He also predestined to be conformed to the image of His Son, who carries scars, by the way. His Son carries scars. And we're to be conformed into the image of His Son, who also carries scars. Conformed to the image of His Son, in order that He might be the firstborn among many brothers. And those whom He predestined, He also called. And those whom He called, He also justified. And those whom He justified, He also glorified. Verse 31 is beautiful. So He said this statement, and we know. So then He comes back with a question, because people like to question. After you say a statement, here comes the questions. Shaul knows what you're about to say. It's so beautiful how the Ruach HaKodesh, knowing that 2,000 years later, and every day since he wrote this letter, that He knew where the human mind would come up with questions. He knew that the human mind would say things. So he answers you because he knows what you're going to say. So he says, he's asking a question. What shall we say? What then shall we say to these things? All this grief and all these bad things that happen, all the frustration that happens, all the things that happen in your life. What shall we say to these things? That's what people that quote this verse all the time. If Yahweh is for us, who can be against us? He asked that question. Again, if the omnipotent is for us, who could be against us? He who did not spare His own Son, but gave Him up for us all, how will He not also with Him graciously give us all things? Who shall bring any charge against Yahweh's elect? I mean, it sounds like He did a good thing for us. Who shall bring a charge against Yahweh's elect? It is Yahweh who justifies. The highest court there is, He justified you. He freed you. He acquitted you. He redeemed you. There is no accusation against you. It cannot be. It cannot stand. I'll continue to go in a second. It is Yahweh who justifies. Who is to condemn? There goes your name. Who can condemn you? If the highest law of the universe has justified you and acquitted you and has made you whole, who can get? He says you are innocent. No one can say another thing. Who is to condemn? Messiah Yeshua is the one who died. More than that, who was raised. Because we know in Corinthians he says, it's not about just the death, it's about the resurrection. Because without the resurrection, we have no hope. It is the resurrection. It says more. He died. More than that, he was raised. And he was raised with scars evident. More than that, who was raised, who was at the right hand of Yahweh, who indeed is interceding for us. And then he says, who shall separate us from the love of Messiah? Shall tribulation? No, this is what I'm trying to tell you, all these bad things that have scarred you and hurt you and have injured you. Shall tribulation separate? I'm going to say these each individually. Shall tribulation, we all know what that word means. Shall tribulation separate you from the love of Messiah? Shall distress separate you from the love of Messiah? Shall persecution separate you from the love of Messiah? Shall famine, oh, what about the hungry, starving children? Shall famine separate you from the love of Messiah? Shall nakedness, I'm not well dressed. Shall nakedness separate you from the love of Messiah? Shall danger could be anything, whether it be from the government, whether it be from robbers, whether it be from a hurricane, earthquake, or tsunami. Shall danger separate you from the love of Messiah? Shall the sword separate you from the love of Messiah? It says, as it is written, for your sake we are being killed all the day long. We are regarded as sheep to be slaughtered. Again, when you get your eyes off of this world and realize that there will be some slaughter of those that believe. There will be tribulation for those that believe. There will be injuries for those that believe. There will be pain, tribulation, famine, and nakedness for those that believe. But are you separated? God, you don't love me. Are you separate? It says right here, these things we know. You are not separated from the love of Messiah. In verse 37, here it is, Romans 8 and verse 37. It says, he asks all these questions. No. In all these things, we are more than conquerors. And that's what I was trying to say earlier, and it's amazing how these things work out. You're on the other side of this thing. Some of you will have things coming up that you will have to stand in, and you will come out on the other side. But we are more, and in some of you, it will take your life, and you will still come out on the other side, because we're more than a conqueror. No, I say all these things, we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. For I am sure, again, I don't think, I don't believe, or you can say believe, I don't just opinionate, or I just don't hope. Well, he does hope too, but it's not just that. He goes, for I am sure that neither death nor life, this is big now, that neither death nor life, nor angels, nor rulers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor powers, nor height, nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of Yahweh in Messiah Yeshua our Lord. All things are for your good, whether they are beating the hell out of you or not. And I didn't say that to you in a slang. Hear that term, beating the hell out of you. There's some truth in that statement. He specifically says here that all things are good. I'll read it to you again. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. This is how you see past how you feel. This is how you have the grace, and maybe in this session, the grace and the revelation that will come to you in the truth of this sermon. This is how you grasp the knowledge and the understanding and the revelation. It's not about how you feel, whether you are covered or not. It doesn't matter what scars or injuries or emotions that are upon you now. It doesn't matter, because the fact is you are covered, and you are covered in quality. You are covered by the blood and the love of the Messiah, Yeshua of Nazareth. No matter what kind of injury, what type of pain, what type of trial or tribulation, or what you've gone through, and whether you feel it or not, you need to know, if you were his saint, if you were his child, if he has changed you, and if you have repented and you have come under his grace and mercy, and if you are a different creature, you need to know that if you have the evidence of his Spirit in you, you need to know that you were healed, scar or not. And you need to know that if you can't feel it, you still need to know it. I pray that knowledge grows in you now. I pray the grace of that knowledge increases your faith now. The scriptures say that faith comes through hearing. In hearing, that trust and faith, synonymous kind of there. That trust and faith comes through hearing, in hearing the word of the Lord. The word of the Lord is being preached to you as we speak. And he says that your faith will increase through the hearing of his word. Be thankful of your scars, because you can know that he's brought you through it. He's healed you. And that's how you can be thankful in all things, because even the painful memories and the painful things that have happened to you, you can know that that was for your good, whether you understand it or not. Your scar is good for you, whether you understand it or not. Your injury is good for you, whether you understand it or not. Your pain was good for you, or for the body, whether you understand it or not. And know this as well, your pain might be a signal to the body to pay attention to something else. I've told people many times in the past, if you stub that, if you kick your pinky toe on the bed frame at nighttime, and we've all been there, or kicked it on the table in the middle of the night. Some of you have kicked that little toe and bent and hit it real hard, and I can promise you your whole body reacted. When someone as little as the pinky toe in the body gets crushed, the body's going to react. People don't like pain, but it was brought to us that we could avoid more damage. If you didn't have pain, you would hurt yourself a lot worse. You could truly injure yourself if you avoided the pain. You could die if you avoided the pain. Your pain might be sent to awaken another part of the body. When you start grasping the depth of these things, you will be able to walk this life more thankful. My pain might awaken your compassion. Your pain might awaken my responsibility to fill your need. The tribulation that you go through might be the wake-up call for a whole group of believers, for a whole city of disciples. Your little individual tribulation might make the whole body do something, might make the whole body change course. Hear that. Your little bit of tribulation might make a whole body change direction. Because I can promise you, when you kick that pinky toe against the door frame, the whole body changes direction. Does it not? You're not forgotten. Your pain is being seen by the Master. And there are your brothers and sisters that will help you in your pain. Your pain might be, like we said, we know that the first generation's apostles' pain, their persecution and pain fed the church. We're partly here today because of their sacrifices. Their tribulation, their persecution, their martyrdoms, their tribulations, their imprisonments gave us the ability to see the endurance of the first saints and say, we can too. Hard on them, but it was for our good. And it will be for their good in eternity. Be thankful of your scar tissue. Pay attention to the fine linen that you are wrapped in. Pay attention to the gifts that Yahweh has given you. You might have to appreciate your silk blouse in a new way. You might have to appreciate that nice gift that's been given to you in a new way. You might not feel it, but you can see that it is still quality. You can know that it is still quality. Your scar might not allow you to feel the suppleness of the cashmere sweater that is upon you. But your eye and heart should still know the quality of the cashmere that has been put upon you. Some of you might not appreciate the husband or wife that you have because you were scarred or hurt from a husband or wife before. Yahweh might have gifted you a beautiful husband or wife that loves you so deeply, and you have trouble receiving it because of a scar or a wound. It might feel different to you. It still doesn't mean you can't appreciate it for the quality that Yahweh has given you. Know that what he's given you, he's given his daughter of the Most High a quality gift. His son of the Most High a quality gift. Some of you have walked through enough pain for a lifetime. And like I said, and Nigel said before, that one sister right beside you can't even worship because they're just trying to hold on. They hurt so bad that it's hard for them to stand up and praise. He's close to the brokenhearted. They might be so injured that they're just clinging on to life. But he's promised to heal you. He's promised to heal you in his way. His way. I know it's hard to grasp. But look up. And as he told you, and as he told Kepha, you come follow me. Love you all. Shalom. Be blessed. I will talk to you all again very soon. As the Lord leads, as He gives me utterance. I only wish to deliver revelation to you and the things to stir you up and to remind you. Sleep well, sleep with peace, and know that all things are for your good. You just have to know it and not feel it, and trust Him. Have the faith that He has your eternal best interest at heart, and the eternal best interest of your fellow brothers and sisters. Because your story, your life might be the encouragement and the testimony that they need just to hold on one more day. Shalom.